Kohen or Cohen is the Hebrew word for priest. Jewish Kohanim are traditionally believed and halakhically required to be of direct patrilineal descent from the biblical Aaron. During the existence of the Temple in Jerusalem, Kohanim performed the daily and holiday duties of sacrificial offerings. Today, Kohanim retain a lesser though distinct status within Rabbinic and Karaite Judaism, and are bound by additional restrictions according to Orthodox Judaism. In the Samaritan community, the Kohanim have remained the primary religious leaders. Ethiopian Jewish religious leaders are sometimes called Kohen, a form of the same word, but the position is not hereditary and the duties are more like those of rabbis than Kohanim in most Jewish communities. Etymology. The noun Kohen is used in the Torah to refer to priests, both Jewish and non-Jewish, such as the Jewish nation as a whole, as well as the priests of Baal. The Hebrew noun Kohen is most often translated as priest, whether Jewish or pagan, such as the priests of Baal or Dagon. Though Christian priests are referred to in Hebrew by the term Koma, the word derives from a Semitic root common, at minimum, to the Central Semitic languages. The cognate Arabic word kahin means soothsayer, augur, or priest. Translations in the paraphrase of the Aramaic Targumic interpretations include, friend, in Targum Jonathan to 2 Kings chapter 10 verse 11, master, in Targum to Amos chapter 7 verse 10, and minister, in Mechilta to Parsha Jethro, Exodus chapter 18 verse 1-20 to 23 1-1. As a starkly different translation, the title, worker, Rashi on Exodus chapter 29 verse 30 and servant, Targum to Jeremiah chapter 48 verse 7, have been offered as a translation as well. Some have attempted to resolve this translation contradiction by suggesting that, although the priestess enjoys specific privileges, a primary component of priesthood in Judaism is servitude. Biblical origins. The status of priest Cohen was conferred on Aaron, the brother of Moses, and his sons as an everlasting covenant or a covenant of salt. During the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness and until the Holy Temple was built in Jerusalem, the priests performed their priestly service in the portable tabernacle. Their duties involved offering the daily and Jewish holiday sacrifices, and blessing the people in a priestly blessing, later also known as Nesiat Karpayim. In a broader sense, since Aaron was a descendant of the tribe of Levi, priests are sometimes included in the term Levites, by direct patrilineal descent. However, not all Levites are priests. When the temple existed, most sacrifices and offerings could only be conducted by priests. Non-priest Levites performed a variety of other temple roles, including ritual slaughter of animals, song service by use of voice and musical instruments, and various tasks in assisting the priests in performing their service. Torah law. The Torah mentions Melchizedek, king of Salem, identified by Rashi as being Shem, the son of Noah, as a priest, Cohen to Eleli in Genesis chapter 14 verse 18. The second is Potiphera, priest of Heliopolis, then Jethro, priest of Midian, both pagan priests of their era. When Esau sold the birthright of the firstborn to Jacob, Rashi explains that the priesthood was sold along with it, because by right the priesthood belongs to the firstborn. Only when the firstborn sinned in the incident of the golden calf, the priesthood was given to the tribe of Levi, which had not been tainted by this incident. Moses was supposed to receive the priesthood along with the leadership of the Jewish people, but when he argued with God that he should not be the leader, it was given to Aaron. Aaron received the priesthood along with his children and any descendants that would be born subsequently. However, his grandson Phinehas had already been born, and did not receive the priesthood until he killed the prince of the tribe of Simeon and the princess of the Midianites. Thereafter, the priesthood has remained with the descendants of Aaron. Some Kabbalah sources cite that, when the Messiah comes, there is a tradition that it will revert to the firstborn high priest in every generation. When the temple was standing, one Cohen would be singled out to perform the functions of the high priest. His primary task was the Day of Atonement service. Another unique task of the high priest was the offering of a daily meal sacrifice. He also held the prerogative to supersede any priest and offer any offering he chose. Although the Torah retains a procedure to select a high priest when needed, in the absence of the temple in Jerusalem, there is no high priest in Judaism today. 24 Kohanic divisions. King David assigned each of the 24 priestly clans to a weekly watch during which its members were responsible for maintaining the schedule of offerings at the temple in Jerusalem, in accordance with 1 Chronicles chapter 24 verses 3-5. Prior to that time, the priestly courses numbered a mere 8. This newly instated a cycle of priestly courses, or priestly divisions, which repeated itself roughly twice each year. When the first and second were built, the priests of Aaron's lineage assumed these roles in the temple in Jerusalem. Each of the 24 groups consisted of 6 priestly families, with each of the 6 serving one day of the week. On the Sabbath day, all 6 worked in tandem. According to later rabbinical interpretation, these 24 groups changed every Sabbath at the completion of the Musaf service. However, on the biblical festivals all 24 were present in the temple for duty. The first of these wards, or divisions, was the priestly clan known as Jehoiarov. Members of this family are said to have gone to Yemen, and are now called by the name Maghori Cohen. According to Dr. Aviva Klein-Frank, the name Jehoiarov is derived from 2 words, Yeho, Yarov, meaning to contend with God, or to contend for God. Yaakov Sapir, who visited Yemen in 1859 CE, conducted a little research into the background of this family and concluded that the name Maghori, or Maghori, is an epithet given to the family, and that the name is a translation from Arabic having the same meaning as their original name, Yeho, Yarov, or one who contends. According to the Jerusalem Talmud, 4 wards came up out of exile: Yediah, Harim, Pashur and Immer. The prophets among them had made a stipulation with them, namely, that even if Jehoiarov should come up out of exile, the officiating ward that serves in the temple at that time should not be rejected on his account, but rather, he is to become secondary unto them. Destruction of the Second Temple. Following the temple's destruction at the end of the First Jewish Revolt and the displacement to the Galilee of the bulk of the remaining Jewish population in Judea at the end of the Bar Kochva Revolt, Jewish tradition in the Talmud and poems from the period records that the descendants of each priestly watch established a separate residential seat in towns and villages of the Galilee, and maintained this residential pattern for at least several centuries in anticipation of the reconstruction of the temple and reinstitution of the cycle of priestly courses. Specifically, this Kohanic settlement region stretched from the Beit Nesav Valley, through the Nazareth region to Arbel and the vicinity of Tiberias. Professor Yosef Dobi, describing a stone inscription found in Yemen and which contains a partial list of the names of the priestly wards and the places of residence, writes, "As for the probable strong spiritual attachment held by the Jews of Immer for the land of Israel, this is also attested to by an inscription bearing the names of the Masmarit, which was initially discovered in September 1970 by W. Muller and then, independently, by P. Grajasnovich within a mosque in Beit al-Adair, a village situated near Tanim, east of Sana. This inscription has been published by several European scholars, but the seminal study was carried out by E. Urbach, one of the most important scholars of rabbinic literature in the previous generation. It should be noted that the priestly wards were seen as one of the most distinctive elements in the collective memory of the Jewish people as a nation during the period of Roman and Byzantine rule in the land of Israel following the destruction of the Second Temple. Insofar as they came to symbolize Jewish worship within the land, it is now uncertain when this stone inscription was first engraved, but certainly it dates back to a time near the Second Temple's destruction, if not earlier. The complete list of sacerdotal names would normally have included 24 priestly wards. However, today, the stone inscription contains only a partial list of their names, with their former places of residence, beginning from the 4th ward, and ending with the 14th ward. This was because the stone had been partially broken away, as also part of which was hidden underground. This is the longest roster of names of this sort ever discovered unto this day. Mishnah and Talmud. Qualifications and Disqualifications. Although Kohanim may assume their duties once they reached physical maturity, the fraternity of Kohanim generally would not allow young Kohanim to begin service until they reach the age of 20, and some opinions state that this age was 30. There was no mandatory retirement age. Only when a Kohen became physically infirm could he no longer serve. A Kohen may become disqualified from performing his service for a host of reasons, including, but not limited to, tumor, marital defilements, and physical blemishes. Of importance is that the Kohen is never permanently disqualified from service but is permitted to return to his normal duties once the disqualification ceases. 24 Kohanic gifts. The Kohanim were compensated for their service to the nation and in the temple through the 24 Kohanic gifts. Of these 24 gifts, 10 are listed as to be given even outside the land of Israel. An example of the gifts given to the Kohen in the diaspora are most notably the 5 shekels of the Pidyon Harbin ceremony, and the giving of the foreleg, cheeks and a bomasum from each kosher slaughtered animal. Kohen and Torah instruction. Torah verses and rabbinical commentary to the Tanakh imply that the Kohen has a unique leadership role amongst the nation of Israel. In addition to the well-known role of the Kohen to officiate in this sacrificial activity in the temple, the Kohen is presumed to have the responsibility of being knowledgeable in the laws and nuances of the Torah and to be able to give accurate instruction in those laws to the Jewish people. Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch explains this responsibility as not being the exclusive Torah instructors, but working in tandem with the rabbinic leaders of their era. Modern application. After the destruction of the Second Temple and the suspension of sacrificial offerings, the formal role of priests in sacrificial services came to an end, either temporarily or permanently. Kohanim, however, retain a formal and public ceremonial role in synagogue prayer services. Kohanim also have a limited number of other special duties and privileges in Jewish religious practice. These special roles have been maintained in Orthodox Judaism, and sometimes in Conservative Judaism. Reform Judaism does not afford any special status or recognition to Kohanim. Synagogue Aliyah every Monday, Thursday and Shabbat in Orthodox synagogues. A portion from the Torah is read aloud in the original Hebrew in front of the congregation. On weekdays, this reading is divided into 3. It is customary to call a Kohen for the first reading, a Leviter for the second reading, and a member of any other tribe of Israel to the third reading. On Shabbat, the reading is divided into 7 portions. A Kohen is called for the first Aliyah and a Leviter to the second, and a member of another tribe for the rest. If a Kohen is not present, it is customary in many communities for a Leviter to take the first Aliyah, Bimkom Cohen, and an Israelite the second and succeeding ones. This custom is not required by Halakha, however, and Israelites may be called up for all Aliyot. The late 12th and early 13th century, Rabbi Meir of Rothenburg ruled that, in a community consisting entirely of Kohanim, the prohibition on calling Kohanim for anything but the first 2 and Maftir Aliyot creates a deadlock situation which should be resolved by calling women to the Torah for all the intermediate Aliyot. The Conservative Rabbinical Assembly's Committee on Jewish Law and Standards, consistent with the conservative movement's general view of the role of Kohanim, has ruled that the practice of calling a Kohen to the first Aliyah represents a custom rather than a law, and that accordingly, a conservative rabbi is not obligated to follow it. As such, in some conservative synagogues, this practice is not followed. Priestly blessing. The Kohanim participating in an Orthodox prayer service also deliver the priestly blessing during the repetition of the Shemini Esrei. They perform this service by standing and facing the crowd in the front of the congregation, with their arms held outwards and their hands and fingers in a specific formation, with a Jewish prayer shawl or talit covering their heads and outstretched hands so that their fingers cannot be seen. Kohanim living in Israel and many Sephardic Jews living in areas outside of Israel deliver the priestly blessing daily. Ashkenazi Jews living outside of Israel deliver it only on Jewish holidays. Pidyon Haben outside the synagogue, the Kohen leads the Pidyon Haben ceremony. This symbolic redemption of the firstborn son is based on the Torah commandment, and you shall redeem all the firstborn of man among your sons. Effects on marital status. Orthodox Judaism recognizes the rules as being in full force, but in practice seeks leniency with respect to some of the rules' strictures, and tends to resolve at least some doubts in favor of permitting a questionable marriage. Areas where Orthodox approaches may create different results include situations where a woman has been raped, kidnapped or held hostage. Descendants of converts whose Judaism status turned out to be subject to doubt, ambiguous prior dating histories, and other potentially ambiguous or difficult situations. A priest of Aaron's lineage is forbidden by the Mosaic law to marry a divorced woman even if she were a native Israelite. Likewise, a male descendant from Aaron's line is prohibited to marry a Jewish woman who has had intercourse with a non-Jew, whether she had been raped or she had willfully done so. So, too, he cannot marry a Jewish woman whose birth was by a father who is a Cohen but who violated one of these prohibitions. If he went ahead and did one of these three things, his male issue born from such union is no longer a priest, but rather becomes a valil, a term designating one who is no longer a priest, but profaned. A priest must maintain an untainted lineage, and his mother must be of Jewish birth. If he married a non-Jewish woman from the Gentile nations, his children are no longer priests, but Gentiles. Had a priest of Aaron's lineage transgressed this prohibition and married a divorced woman, and they had children together, all of his female issue, whether his, or his sons, or his grandchildren, would be prohibited from marrying into the priestly stock for all generations. Rape poses an especially poignant problem. The pain experienced by the families of Kohanim who were required to divorce their wives as the result of the rapes accompanying the capture of Jerusalem is alluded to in this Mishnah. If a woman were imprisoned by non-Jews concerning money affairs, she is permitted to her husband, but if for some capital offense, she is forbidden to her husband. If a town were overcome by besieging troops, all women of priestly stock found in it are ineligible to be married to priests or to remain married to priests, but if they had witnesses, even a slave, or even a bondswoman, these may be believed, but no man may be believed for himself. Rabbi Zechariah ben Hakitzab said, "By this temple, her hand did not stir from my hand from the time the non-Jews entered Jerusalem until they went out. They said to him, no man may give evidence of himself." Israel. The Israeli rabbinate will not perform a marriage halakhically forbidden to a Kohen. For example, a Kohen cannot legally marry a divorced or converted woman in the state of Israel, although a foreign marriage would be recognized. Conservative Jewish view. Conservative Judaism has issued an emergency takana temporarily suspending the application of the rules in their entirety, on the grounds that the high intermarriage rate threatens the survival of Judaism, and hence that any marriage between Jews is welcomed. The takana declares that the offspring of such marriages are to be regarded as Kohanim. The movement allows a Kohen to marry a convert or divorcee for these reasons. Since the temple in Jerusalem is no longer extant and korbanot should not be restored, Kohanim are no longer able to perform temple services in a state of ritual purity. Because the intermarriage crisis among American Jewry is an extreme situation, the conservative movement feels it must support the decision of two Jews to marry.